grandfather had one sleeve pinned up at the shoulder. He never explained it to strangers, and strangers learned quickly not to ask. But he explained it to me when I was 9 years old and sitting at his kitchen table while he made coffee, because he said I was old enough to know what I was walking into. He told me about the creature first. Lanky, he said, like a greyhound stretched to 6 feet, with limbs that bent in too many places and a face that was just nothing. Smooth. And its stomach, when it opened, was rows of teeth going back into darkness. He described it the way you describe a car accident you survived, carefully, without drama, because the drama had already happened, and what was left was just the shape of the thing. Then he told me about the rule. Every eldest child on my father's side, 21st birthday, no exceptions, except the ones who knew how to fight back. He had fought back. He had lost an arm doing it. He considered that a reasonable trade. I spent the next 12 years learning everything he knew. He taught me to shoot in the field behind his house, then the salt lines, the herbs, the specific way to move through a room when you think something is already inside it. He showed me the family records, not the official ones, but the ones he kept himself, written in a notebook with a cracked spine, names and dates, my great-grandmother, my uncle, others further back, going to places I couldn't pronounce, all of them eldest children, all of them gone at 21. The only outlier was him, and he had paid for it in blood and bone. My grandfather died 2 years before my birthday. Old age, hospital bed, his remaining hand holding my father's. I was 19. I sat in the parking lot afterward and cried, and then I went home and started making lists, because that was what he would have wanted. He had given me everything he knew. The rest was up to me. A week before my birthday, my sister Lydia came over. She was leaving that night for a year-long trip, somewhere remote, no electronics, the kind of thing she had been planning for 2 years and had talked about with a brightness that made me feel guilty for dreading it. We sat on the kitchen floor with a bottle between us, because neither of us wanted to be formal about it. "I think I'm scared," I said. The alcohol made it easier. Lydia kicked my leg. "Don't be. Just remember what Papa taught you." She paused. "But if you do die, can I have your Nintendo? The new Animal Crossing is calling my name." I laughed and shoved her. "Arsehole, I'm not going to die. Out of spite. And now you're out of the will forever." We talked until late. After she left, I sat at the kitchen table and wrote letters. Not goodbye letters exactly. More like records. Notes for the people who would have to sort through my things if it went wrong. Lydia would get the Nintendo. My boyfriend had a letter explaining everything, though he already knew most of it. He had wanted to stay with me through the night. I told him no. I couldn't stand the thought of him being in the room if the thing came through the door. I packed the letters into a box and put them in the closet. Then I packed everything else I needed. The night of my 21st birthday, I set an alarm for 11:50 p.m. I ate dinner early. I gathered everything: salt, shotgun, the flamethrower I had practiced with in my grandfather's field, a fire extinguisher, the herbs the local woman had prepared for me, the beads I had ordered online from a seller who had 400 5-star reviews and a disclaimer about not guaranteeing results. I drew the salt lines. I checked the windows. I locked the bedroom door and sat down on the floor with my back against the bed. And then I waited. Hour 1, hour 4, hour 8. The television ran. I ate the snacks I had packed, watched the closet, watched the door, watched the gap at the bottom where the salt line was, looking for any disturbance any sign that something on the other side was testing it. Nothing. By hour 12, something had shifted, not relief. A strange, suspended unease. The silence had a quality to it, not the silence of safety, but of something that wasn't where it was supposed to be. By hour 20, I was sitting cross-legged on the floor, turning the flamethrower's ignition switch over and over in my hand, when I noticed the box in the corner of the closet. My mother had given it to me a few weeks before. I had set it aside because there was too much else to prepare. A plain cardboard box, covered in small drawings. Flowers, I thought, or maybe stars. I had assumed it was keepsakes, old photos, the kind of thing you look at later. I pulled it into my lap. Inside were letters, handwritten, on folded paper, some of them dated, some of them not. I unfolded the first one and started reading. They were love letters. My mother's handwriting on some, a man's on others. A man named Peter. The dates were clear. The content was clear. I read through them slowly, then quickly, then went back and read them again, because I needed to be certain I was understanding what I was reading. My mother and Peter had been seeing each other during her marriage to my father. The letters spanned almost 2 years. The last one was dated 9 months before I was born. I sat with that for a long time. 9 months before I was born. Which meant my father, the man whose bloodline carried the curse, whose family records filled my grandfather's cracked notebook, whose arm my grandfather had lost defending, was not my biological father. I was not the eldest child on my father's side. I had never been. I sat on the floor, with the letters in my lap, and the salt line undisturbed at the door. Lydia, who shared my father's blood completely, who was the younger sibling, or who I had always believed was the younger sibling, because I had always believed I was the eldest. Somewhere without a phone, without any way to receive a message. Lydia, who would turn 21 in 4 months. The creature had not come for me. Of course it hadn't. I was not on the list. I had never been on the list. I had spent 12 years preparing for something that was never pointed at me. And in doing so, I had never once thought to look at who was standing behind me. I looked at the clock. Hour 22, 2 hours left in my birthday. The salt line was still intact. The room was still quiet. Somewhere, the thing that had taken my great-grandmother off a mountain and put my uncle into a semi and torn my grandfather's arm from his body was still out there, still counting, waiting for the right name, the right date, the right door. And Lydia didn't know any of it. I picked up my phone, tried her number. It rang through to voicemail. The automated kind, no personal greeting, just a tone. I tried again. Same. I put the phone down and looked at the letters spread across the floor around me. My mother's handwriting. A man named Peter. A date that changed everything. The salt line at the door hadn't moved. Whatever logic the thing ran on, it had apparently passed me by without a second glance. I thought about Lydia's face when she left. The brightness in it. The year ahead of her, no phone, no contact. Just open road and distance. I thought about my grandfather's notebook. All those names, all those dates, and the one name that had never appeared there because nobody had known to write it down. The room was quiet. The salt line held. I sat there in the silence and understood what it felt like to survive something you were never supposed to survive, and what that survival had cost someone else.